You're near a microphone.
Don't get too comfortable.
For the sake of people watching, this is Ken Mavrogeorge from Ty and Bond, who's one of our civil engineers.
So I think probably the best place to start at this point would be the elementary school. Since we last came before this committee, we've made a lot of progress. I think we've developed a number of sets in coordination with the architecture firm. We submitted a number of permits and appeared before the planning board in the town of Newmarket. We've submitted an AOT application. We've received comments from the NHDES AOT Bureau on this project. AOT is the alteration of terrain permit for stormwater compliance. We are in the process now of responding back to the AOT. As part of the comments that came back for this particular project, we anticipate that there may be some modifications to the stormwater design that we had prepared, which should, in some cases, reduce some of the stormwater management features while maintaining the size of the others. So, if anything, we're looking at a potential reduction in some of the stormwater measures, mainly the underground detention features that we're looking into. We have submitted also an NHDES sewer connection permit for this site and received comments back from the DES. We are currently working on responding to those as well. Some minor modifications to the plans, where previously we had a sewer line running beneath the proposed addition over here. That is now being redirected around the building based on the field observations we made on the location of the existing sewer at the site. So again, we're making modifications in order to address the comments from the DES. Lastly, we've submitted an application to the DOT for a driveway permit for the new driveways and reconstructed driveways out at the site. The DOT did comment back and ask for a traffic study of both the elementary school and high school sites. It is my understanding that that contract for the traffic study has been awarded by the town, and we will obviously wait to hear back as to what the recommended improvements are to 152 and incorporate them into the design. Until then, we really don't see any changes going back to the DOT until, again, we have that study. Happy to answer any questions before we move on to the high school.
Sure. I guess probably for Greg or Meredith, do we have a time frame for when we get that traffic study? I know they put the tubes out last week, the week before I saw them doing that. So are we 3 or 4 weeks away from getting the traffic study?
Yeah, we're a couple, 3 weeks away. They've been awarded it, and the purchase orders have been processed, so they have started the process of doing the work.
Okay, thank you. So then, what you just summarized, there's nothing significant, basically.
No, the most notable changes, I sort of referenced it quickly, was the sewer changes. Most notably, we did have a sewer line running underneath the foundation of the proposed addition. Previously, based on the location, we were under the assumption that the sewer main had stopped further towards the north. We went out, looked at found a manhole in the woods, determined that there is a sewer line running between the two, and it makes a lot of sense to just go around the building. That addresses a comment from the DES, but also, makes a more efficient design instead of coring through the foundation.
So there's nothing, though, that's come up so far that's been a cost, a significant cost increase?
No, I mean,
DOT still is a wild card.
The DOT probably will be the most likely source of a change to the project, whether or not they require a turn lane or some other signalization out there,
Right.
warning signs or whatnot. The AOT stormwater changes will be likely a reduction again under the underground detention system out in the front parking lot in the site. For reducing the size of that structure, they had a comment on the storm modeling, and when we look back at the storm modeling, we found an opportunity to reduce the size of the structure just based on the scenario that we were running. So we do think that there's an opportunity to reduce it some. Mhm. Sure. Nope. Sure. So what we're doing was we're still over detaining in this area, and we are still targeting the same reductions that we were shooting for before. It's just a different way of looking at the scenario that we were running. We'll jump from there to the high school. Similarly, we've since the last time we were here, we presented this project along with the elementary school to the planning board. Received some good feedback as to where snow storage would be located and how to deal with some of the abutters. We've met with the abutters on both these projects, and again received a lot of good feedback on stormwater and snow storage. As for the permitting that we have submitted for this project, again, we submitted to the DOT, dependent on the traffic study. The sewer connection permit went in simultaneously with the elementary school. Those comments came back at the same time. We're working to address those comments. Fairly minor in nature, no major changes to this sewer that we are predicting. And intend to get that out within the next week or so. The alteration of terrain permit for the DES was submitted simultaneously with the elementary school, but we have not received any comments back as of yet. They are two separate projects, so we are anticipating any day now that we would get those comments back. But generally, the site, configurations have been have not changed since the last time we were here.
Again, going back to the butters meeting, I think, I can't recall exactly the details of the discussion, but someone had recommended that we send the flow in a different direction.
Sure.
And I think it was to the right.
Yeah, so I believe the comment came up was we are proposing a stormwater basin out at the back of this, the parking lot across the street, and the abutters at this development on, I guess, to the western side of the property. We're curious as to whether or not we could discharge a pipe towards the wetland over there or towards the other side of the property. Based on how the site is generally sloping, discharging it where we are discharging it is the best location to keep stormwater flowing in the right direction. I think what we're trying to do, similar to the elementary school, is try to infiltrate stormwater, try to slow it down, and as best we can. And again, we are waiting to hear back comments from the DES, and any changes that we make, we'll try to incorporate from the abutters to the DES at that time.
I could be very wrong, but I thought it was behind the building to the east.
There were.
A couple of different
That was-
concerns that were raised.
Right.
Yeah.
Between the abutters meeting and the meeting with the planning
And
board.
Yes.
I just want to be able to explain,
Sure.
have we taken any action on their recommendation?
I believe the majority of the comments we heard at the abutters meeting and the planning board were stormwater related, were the direction, again, which we were discharging across the street. On the high school side was mostly pertaining to snow storage up against the adjacent property. We'll certainly move and try to work with the town as to who will be plowing. We've been in contact with the folks responsible for plowing, and when we incorporate it into our plans, we'll make sure that it's not shown on the property line, make sure that they're aware that that's not the appropriate spot for it. The plans that we do show, you'll notice that there's a lot of green area up against the property line that wasn't there previously. They do. It's part of the DES alteration terrain permit. They will comment. They have probably over the last few months become more stringent with their review, and one of the requirements is that we show snow storage on the plans. So they will comment on the areas we have shown. So we will likely incorporate any changes based on the butters comments when we go back to the DES.
Just for my information, I guess, how do you go about calculating that? Is it akin to like the 100-year storm, 10-year storm type of thing?
In general, towns do it, municipalities do it different ways. Oftentimes, it's a certain amount of square feet per square foot cleared. Maybe 1 square foot of snow storage for every 10 square foot cleared. In this case, it's kind of hard to calculate. What you'll need. Every year's different. But in general, we like to, we generally put a note on our plans, and DES likes to see it as well, is that should the snow storage areas be sort of built to capacity or filled to capacity, that any excess snow storage is removed off-site. I believe at the abutters meetings and the planning board, the discussion is to try to get as much snow across the street away from the school property, because this is the area where you see a lot of encroachment on either side.
And ideally to clear that property so that it's not an eyesore.
Sure. Yeah, I think we originally showed some snow storage in this area along the side of the driveway entrance, and we see a lot of opportunity to move it. Don't show it or don't allow any snow storage on this side, allow it on the other side. That would be a big benefit.
We're ever more tight on the building side, right?
Sure.
Even a few years ago, I know.
This
For
isn't
Chris
a-
M., you'll remember, right? It was tight on with all the snow.
We,
I think we had to come in and remove it, right?
we did end up trucking some out. That was 3 winters ago.
And was that just school snow, or was that
No.
also town snow?
No, some of that was coming from, I don't know where in town, but it was not just school snow.
And is the town going to continue using some of that property? Do we have any?
I would defer to Greg on that.
To use the Carpenter property for snow storage? Unlikely. They're not going to be able to with what's there.
With some of the changes with the stormwater, we can't pile snow out back there because of those stormwater measures. So, this conversation with public works director.
And although we're adding a lot of building square footage, we're also adding more green space on our current lot. There will be less actual snow to be removed from the current part. The current paved area is shrinking.
Right. So on this, that was a point we made at the planning board meeting, is that you do have a lot more roof, so it's a lot of area that will not have to be paved or plowed. And in addition, as you look on the outside of this parking lot, if you were to go out there today, you'd notice that it's parked or paved right up to or very close to that property line. Here we're building that out a little bit and providing some area for snow storage that won't, cross in.
Just additionally clarification, very little of the snow that was on the Carpenter site was from our property. In fact, in the back, it goes over the banking towards Moonlight Brook.
We will pass that on to Mother Nature. She doesn't.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Next on the list is the food service final plan.
I think Ingrid Nichols from Banwell and Adam Ornitzo are taking the lead on this piece.
There it is.
So do you want the kitchen or architecture first? Kitchen?
Yeah.
Okay. Can everyone really see this? Is it too far? So we'll send it out with our meeting notes when we send it, so you can have it for record.
I can see the page.
colored it up, I guess.
Color in it.
So this is the elementary school kitchen. So basically the existing wall is right here. So this is the new addition piece that we're adding. And we're taking over some of the storage space that exists right now. So the kitchen's getting a lot bigger. Sorry. So the deliveries will come out back where the bus loop is, and they will have this double door. This is a new double door that will come in. There's a bathroom right here, a dry food storage, and then 2 walk-ins that will be sunk down into the new slab. So they'll be inside the building. Then the cooking area is back in this area, and the prep with the prep sinks, a washer and dryer enclosed with a couple of doors, and this is the servery line. So the cafeteria, or your existing gym right now, is right here. So what will happen is there will be 2 lines. The kids will line up and come in here, get their milk and other things, get their hot stuff, and then come out past this register and out this door. And they'll do the same thing on the other side. So you'll actually have 2 lines that can go in on either side. So there won't be rolling things in and out. We'll have lockable man doors, meaning not rolling gates or doors or anything. So we tried to use that existing, it's a load-bearing wall, so we didn't want to just cut these great big holes in there and add steel beams. And so we tried to reuse as much of that as possible to make it cost-effective. Dishwashing is shown in this location, so there is a pass-through here, a counter, so they can wash things off and put it right into the dishwasher. Pretty straightforward.
So one question on delivery trucks. John, I don't know what size you typically have. Box trucks, probably not tractor trailers.
Primarily box trucks, but in the summer we may get a bigger.
So they'll come in on the McGrath entrance.
Right here.
This way, and it's one way.
Right.
I'm sure you've thought of this. There's plenty of space for them to back in and out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice space. Because there's the propane truck back there, the dumpster
Yep.
and stuff.
Yep.
They back in right now, and we're not adding, where they back in, we're not
Sure.
adding any space to that right now.
So I don't know, Greg, if you've shown this to the kitchen director or shown them.
Yeah, we've had several meetings with the kitchen director as well as the kitchen staff, walk through every piece, part, and piece of equipment in, and actually we did it again last week, and then again Monday. So they're well aware and very supportive.
Flow spaces, at least the kitchen was greater.
Much greater.
Considerably.
It looks kind of tight from this distance, but I'm sure it's good.
Well, we don't want to give them too much space.
And one thing too, we focused on this is we try to keep the sight line down, so in the prep area, when they allow kids to come in and you can have one person kind of monitor this area from over here, so we were able to keep all the countertops and
Right.
shelving
And I know that
low.
was a concern for us previously in accommodating breakfast particularly.
Mhm. So
And is there an office? Is there like a?
there's an office.
Yes.
I know we're also there's a mural on the outside right now, and that's all going to stay. The only door we're replacing is just the dish room door. Right now it's a swinging door. We're going to replace that with a coiling door. So,
And we're assuming you want to keep the mural.
Yes, we did.
so. And the nice thing is now is you won't have the milk coolers out in front, because the milk coolers will be in the kitchen now, so you don't have to.
So all new mechanicals, all new electricals. We are salvaging some kitchen equipment and buying some new, but it's not a total brand. So I think we're pretty much there with the. I'll let Adam talk about the high school.
So the high school, they share a delivery access with the shipping and receiving. So they actually come through shipping and receiving. There's not a loading dock, but there's some stairs. They don't pick it up on the loading areas out there. The come through, we have dry storage, walk-in cooler, freezer, office, more storage back here. The ice maker back there. And then as you come through, same thing, we have the cook prep area in the back, as well as the serving area. And it's the same concept where you come through and the line, two lines come through, they feed through, pick up their milk and stuff, and then come through the point of sales counter on the way out. On this, we are trying to utilize some existing openings. So I think before we had maybe a bigger opening. Structurally, that became a little more of a challenge. So now we're just going with a 6-foot door at the point of sale, which is still, you know, wider than your corridor anyway. So we have the coffee maker. We do have bathroom here. In a little area. The bathrooms can't open directly to the kitchen, so we have like a little vestibule anteroom there, and it gives the staff a little storage area in the back for their purses and shoes and coats and stuff like that. And then we have the dish area here as well, and so that has a new dishwasher pass through. One of the things too on this is this is actually a firewall for our building separation. We actually have 3 separate fire areas in this building. So all these doors will be on magnetic hold opens with closers, and they'll be like 2-hour doors. So, but we're in the process of kind of fine tuning all that. That's just kind of the nature of us expanding onto this building that's been expanded on. So.
And that's part of the work you've done at the fire marshal's office as well as our local building inspection and fire chief.
Yeah, we've worked with Mike Hoffman. He's privy to everything that we're doing at this point. So.
And this is good too, that most of the stuff is in that new slab, because there's a lot of drains and a lot of, under slab things, so we'll have, and where we have the walk-ins, you have to actually sink them down into the concrete and have them recessed for the insulation under there, so.
So Ingrid, there was some debate at one point about the loading dock height. Where have you landed on that?
We have landed on a landing with just stairs. No ramp, no big loading dock. It got very complicated with the grading and how the trucks were coming in and if they were driving over the grease trap. So we talked with Greg and the civil engineer and the mechanical, electrical, us, and came up with a fairly simple plan.
So when we do have, just to address that here for delivery, this is where we got to, is we do have, we also have the bus drop-off with 4 main doors. We actually made these front doors 8 feet high, so they're a little bit taller. That way you can actually get bigger items in and also access the cafetorium with stage equipment like that. So that's one thing we did think about. So when you do have those rare instances of having a semi drop-off, once a year or something, you can't accommodate it here. It's just not back at that loading dock. So.
And or sets for the stage. If they're going to be created in the tech ed, you can go out through the overhead door and come in here and get into the stage this way, or they'll be built on the stage. But.
Yeah, your stage is considerably bigger.
So this is that loading area, and it is what it is.
So it's a set of stairs where people or delivery folks have to bring stuff upstairs.
And that's what you have now. So it's really not much.
We've gone from the Cadillac to a Porsche to, and we've actually settled on this for now. I think if we find that, when going to bid, if we're looking at stuff and we have more money, we could look at a embellished loading dock, but it really got very expensive very quickly. So that's why we ended up coming back to simplicity.
We have a pickup.
Correct.
And can I just ask why stairs and not a ramp? It seems like
Not enough room to ramp it
Well,
enough.
it's,
6 feet of ramp, you need. If you have 6 feet of ramp, you need 6 feet of height. You need 60 feet of ramp. So.
Well, and we looked at too, would it be half stairs, half ramp, like you have inside the school now? And for now, this is a placeholder. This is our base bid, if you will. It's the most conservative. So, yes, a ramp would be nicer, but we ended up having it come up with a landing and then up again. And it just, if the trucks are really coming in this way, it made it a large expense for a
Don't those trucks typically have ramps of their own that they could put on the?
And they can just back up and drop it onto the stairs.
Yeah.
Cut
Well,
off half.
either dropping on the stairs or just above the stairs, I would think, so they'd have the flat surface.
And we're looking right now, we're according to now we got rid of the loading dock. So before, one of the challenges was we had to have a level space for a semi to park. Now we don't have to have that level space. We can do a little bit more with the grade there. So we might actually be able to take a couple of steps out of here too, which will make it a little bit easier. So.
Is our question a small hydraulic platform or something like that? Is that some kind of?
A lot of trucks have them now too. They have self-leveling dock levels.
They have like Tommy lifts or something on the back of them.
One thing that we've done in the past is where this landing is, we make that rail, either you can swing it open so a truck could back up and actually load onto that landing. Maybe that's something we do.
And there are other options too. I mean, we have the Tech Ed has an overhead door right there. And we actually made Tech Ed has water doors, and they have like a 4-foot door or a 3.5-foot door. So that is another opportunity. We also have a ramp going out of this there, and that's a pair of double doors. So there's other ways to access the building besides that stair.
The turnaround room is the higher priority for sure.
Yeah.
At this point, since you figured out not squeezing the trucks in or making it difficult to turn, the stairs allows them that extra.
And most
But
of
we
that,
also have dumpsters out there, and we've got underground grease traps out there that really don't want trucks driving on top of all the time, so.
most of the loading and unloading that we're talking about is done by vendors, and when they know what our situation is, they're gonna send a vehicle that is most accommodating for our delivery needs.
Well said.
I mean, that's the reality. I mean, I'm not saying it's, extremely convenient for custodial staff, but for the amount of things that they haul in and out, they're not taking big things in and out of the building consistently. It's the trash, and it will be better than it currently is from an access standpoint.
You'll still have the front door, which you could still come this way too, or this way. It's have many different ways to get in.
So the kitchen design, it was professionally designed. There was a firm, and the staff was involved,
Yes.
and they're happy with the outcome, the
Yes.
current design, and addressed all their needs. Yep.
They wouldn't be here presenting this, but they're in Florida.
Okay.
We had multiple meetings with the staff and the director, and really went through this quite a bit, and over the last several months, trying to get to that, and a lot of tweaking was done. Would they like a bigger space at the elementary school? Sure. But the physical space is not there, so they'd really like to have the layout that we have at the high school. But again, there's 10 feet differences in width, and that makes an enormous difference on being able to move equipment. So at the end of the day, I think we were able to create, they were able to create something that works well for them. It's considerably better, has better flow. We're able to take in a lot of the suggestions that they had, made them work. So.
We're pretty much still within the same budget numbers we were talking before.
Yeah. At this point, yes.
Are we asking the department heads or people like that to sign off on the formal specs and designs and stuff like that? The process in place, or is it head mounting?
No. Records of meetings, emails.
Ready for plans?
Yeah.
Let's start with the junior senior high since we're here.
Yeah.
So behind the scenes, we went to the planning board, we've attended the butters meetings. We've also been having many conference calls with all the engineers. So even though the plan kind of looks the same with the pretty colors, there's a stack of plans that we're all working with, all those minutia with Greg and Meredith and Ekman. Not too many changes, but we're getting a lot more detail. So some of the things that we've been doing, and I think Adam should kind of give you an overview of the code, how we're treating the building. So why don't we start with that?
Yeah, so essentially, this building right now, if you had to rebuild this building as is, it wouldn't meet code. So when we're adding on to that, right, basically what we're doing is we're creating 3 separate fires. We're actually making
Fire compartments.
They're really
Big word there.
Well, so these are actually, we have the 2-hour firewall, and they're actually, threshold has the idea is that you could have a fire here and it's gonna, for 2 hours, it's not gonna affect this building. They're structurally independent, they're completely separate, and it's all gonna be automated, so in the event of a fire, all the doors shut, they can't open their 2-hour doors. Do all that, and that's really the big thing with this building. And then now that we're, setting the sprinkler system, sprinkling these old buildings really gives you a lot more leeway in the code, and that's really going to be a big benefit to that. We have had a survey gone through of the existing system. For the majority, it's a good system. It was there, so we're expanding onto that system.
They also are doing the flow test on Monday, so they're going to see what the rate and the flow is using that schedule.
Verify that we don't need a fire pump. So, other than that, I mean, it's getting that issue addressed was the big one, and now from here on out, it's a little bit easier. One of the challenges, so it's because the original building does have some wood structure in it, and that's kind of what's limiting some of the factors. And all the new construction is going to be non-combustible construction. So,
another item that we've worked on is our acoustical consultant has provided us with a report, so we're in the process of kind of digesting that. So we'll, on our next meeting, I think December 13th, we'll have a 3D model to show you of the cafetorium and the stage and kind of talk about what they're recommending. A lot of times in public schools, they kind of recommend the moon. So, and those things can be expensive, so we want to kind of bring those choices and decisions to you guys so you can kind of weigh the cost benefit. We won't have the costs, but at least you can see what their report is recommending. We've also been spending a lot of time, and I was at the Reducing High most of this afternoon, looking at all of the nitty-gritty equipment, so all the lathes, all the copiers, all the microwaves, all the science equipment. I have, yes, exactly. So because we need to know where they are, what their amperage, voltage, all that stuff, to give it to the engineers and where they're going. So in the new proposed layout, they have a home. And one of the biggest things I snapped a bunch of photos today is the band music area has a lot of equipment, a lot more of equipment than I had remembered. So now we're getting to that level of detail where we have to go and make sure that all that stuff is going to fit in the storage areas and the music office and et cetera. So that's been a pretty big chunk of time. We also met with the principals and Greg a couple weeks ago to kind of go over the plans on equipment. So they've been very, very helpful, so thank you for that. Mechanically and structurally, they are continuing to talk a lot about existing roof curbs for mechanical units and the new additions on where we can stick and how heavy those units are, and if the existing structure can support them or not. So they're continuously going back and forth on that. No major changes or surprises on that.
I think most of the things we're finding now are like good things we're negotiating, and like trying to reduce things where we can. Like, for example, like now that we have some more information, we're taking a little more finer detail look at the 1925 building. There's a lot of like old renovated areas. Like there's some openings now that we can actually reuse. So instead of putting a new hole in the wall, we can use an old hole that was filled in 20 years ago. Yeah, 50, yeah. So those kinds of efficiencies we're trying to find right now and coordinate and make sure we work. Some of the challenges too are because of the existing building, we're stuck with our floor-to-floor height. So like the hood from the kitchen, we had to make sure we could fit that under the. So it actually worked out pretty well at the end of the day, but it took a little bit of coordination and.
So some other things that we've worked on is this courtyard design. So our base bid right now, because the media center needs 2 ways out, we need an egress path to get back into the building, as well as the high school art room needs 2 ways out. So we actually have a door here, and we have these excuse me, sidewalks, basically, if you will, back to the doors. So we are going to have an alternate plan that shows and will be priced up for the outdoor courtyard with the pavers and to have that much more space.
If you're using those, the courtyard as an egress, is there some requirement of snow removal or maintenance?
There's not a requirement, but there is a catch basin here that has drainage, so it will be sloped and it will be in a pipe underground.
Well,
So like any other egress door, we have to keep snow
Just
and
shovel
that
it. Oh, yes.
walkway clear.
Is that what you're
Yeah.
You just need to maintain just that walkway.
Yep.
is all we need
Yes.
to- And so, so we did have, we actually have 3 egress doors, and this is actually sized for the door, so you can actually have fill capacity out here. If we didn't have that, you'd have to be limited to how many people you could have out there. So you can even hold assemblies and things out there. We have the capacity for that, so you're not limited.
What do you mean, filled like 350 or?
I forget what the exact. That is quite a bit. Probably
Yeah.
closer to like 500, I think.
I mean, that's, you know,
Yeah.
It's everybody then.
Yeah, it's.
Flex space.
Ingrid, is the acoustical consultant weighing in on the music rooms too?
yes.
And luckily, the good thing about the music room, I mean, from acoustic, from a performance within the space they're looking at, but also because we're outside of the footprint of the building, you're more isolated from, you don't have like classrooms right above, and that's one of the benefits of this layout.
And just a reminder, currently the wall of the music room abuts our library media center, so that'll be a new.
So the courtyard in the bottom plan, or the cheapest plan, if it's greenery, so grass or whatever in there, is that what you're
That's
saying?
the plan, yeah.
And so then is there a plan for how that is maintained in terms of having the grass or?
Somehow I knew she was gonna look over it and, I'm gonna say yes, tentatively, and have to be mowed. The access to get a mower in there is through the building, so we're gonna have to work on how that really looks and how that functions, but it will happen.
No astroturf.
This might,
We have a hand mower, I mean.
this may be,
Not at this particular
this may be
moment.
one of those times where I can,
But you can
to
get
make you
little
feel a little bit better, my former school, there was a courtyard in the middle, the same kind of thing, there's a process. And even now with electric mowers, it's,
Say,
you're not
the
worried
little
about gas
electric mowers
inside or
work great.
anything, so that'll be an easy.
We contract that out anyway.
Currently working at a school
We
with
do
an
now.
indoor courtyard.
We contract the outside
So,
mowing, yeah.
that's why I ask, but.
Well,
just
doesn't
a
have
I mean, I
to be
just think a clear
grass.
plan, you know, we don't have a push mower any either, so they're
Right.
out there with a weed whacker trying to.
We'll
do
be,
it, and
we'll be,
it's not-
yeah, that's,
Yeah.
I'm not, that, in the scope of the project, getting a push mower is,
Absolutely, it's one of those little detail things.
Right, so, but we will,
If it makes you feel any better, I was also a landscaper, and so
All
it's,
right,
I'm not
well,
gonna let it
then
get out of
fine,
control.
that'll be good.
he did offer to go out with scissors, though.
So the drainage, going back to that, it just goes to a pipe, connects to the sewer? or-
Storm sewer, so it's going to tie in with the roof drains.
Yep.
So
I
the
mean,
same
no,
system.
the courtyard drain?
Right.
With the drainage system, not with the
Got
Adam, is that, I know the roof won't be terribly pitched, but the roof drains typically will go off the front. When we're looking at the courtyard, they'll go off facing the road, not into the courtyard, or the roof drains tie down.
They're all
into that
internal.
pit.
The primaries are internal. The only ones we have is we have emergency overflows. So they all, like each separate roof area has its own emergency overflow. So if you walk in and there'll be like a lamb's tongue, it's like a brass, they don't look bad, but they'll be sitting out probably like right here somewhere. And you'll see, if you see water coming out of that, you know, call Greg and say, get up there and I got a leaky,
So you got a
I got a clogged
Yep.
roof drain.
That's typically like ice events, things like that, and then
Yeah.
you get melt and then freeze, melt and freeze, or heavy rain. We may have
There's
had
just
it
or something in there.
basically.
So along those lines, as there's a bit of a walkway around the perimeter, there's no concern about like ice dams or icicles or anything because it's draining in a completely different direction.
It's all draining back into the building. We're not into the building, but onto the roof and away from
I think we were in the same place on that one.
Okay.
So a few other items, we talked about the loading dock, the doors and hardware, so we're getting down to the nitty-gritty on, you know, what doors have glass, half glass, narrow glass, full glass, types of hardware, and Adam, you met with the hardware consultant that we have, specifying all of the different closers and the handles and the hinges and the kick plates and the
and the
Door
keying and door access
stops.
control is a big one. So like all these doors are going to have, you know, they're going to have automatic door operators for handicap access.
At the
It
entrance.
ties into at the entrance. Not every single door, but classroom doors aren't getting those. You know, access control. You know, control into the vestibule. So now when they visitors come, they'll come in. They'll be able to get into the vestibule during business hours, but they won't be able to get past these vestibule doors until the receptionist buzzes them in. So making all that hardware work together, you know, we just got to make sure it gets done. So.
Question. We spoke with energy efficiency people today who may take a look at the town buildings as well as the schools. What kind of input? I guess we're talking about the layout and where we're putting equipment in the rooms and things of that nature, which I think is great, and the soundproofing. But when we're talking about this energy audit, if they're coming up with a set of materials which may be different than the original plan, I know we'll have Eastman or Greg or somebody going through that. It's just looking at the coordination of being able to say, will we have that input so we can compare against what our plans are for piping or how the flows are in the place where they may be providing us some insights.
I can probably answer that better. I mean, at this point, we're a ways away from that part of it. The coordination of that obviously will be worked with Banwell, Exton, and our internal people to, if there is changes that they may make or suggest, and obviously will be done with that team to be able to get the biggest bang for the buck on that. But at this moment, as you know, we were in that same meeting, we just will be making a recommendation on who we're still several months away from how on that particular piece of it.
Right, the
Yeah,
board and
and-
council have yet to review any proposed plan. We have no specific details, and for example, at the elementary school, we're not touching most of the interior, so any of those sort of system in terms of lighting improvement, or those pieces could happen after the project, because we're not impacting that part.
I feel good from what we've discussed, and this is not the place to do it, that we're doing this in a way that will give us options, but that's for us to decide what to do. I just wanted to make sure that we're coordinated enough so we don't have people doing all the detailed plans on piping and what's going here and there, and then we get this report after that's done, and we have to go back and review it. I'm sort of hoping we don't double hit on the engineering work, and we have some of those recommendations to evaluate.
And again, it hasn't been approved who that particular contractor is. There is a recommendation from the committee coming forth. That recommended contractor has also worked with Banwell before, so, and actually, you actually gave them a written recommendation, which I thought was nice. So we'll be working
They
towards
mentioned there was
that.
no payoff in there.
No.
Yeah. So as we go through with that, we'll be looking at that, and obviously we do need to work with Ekman and Banwell to, if there is, and I'm making it a big if, because we're not anywhere near the point where we are, where we have that information, it will be something that will be worked as a team to make sure that we're not undoing something that's already been installed or planned or ordered or something like that.
That'd be
And you know, I don't think that's we're way too much in the infancy of that particular item.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'd be surprised if that work would influence or change anything we're doing now. They don't have time to change it. They're not gonna have a report by the time we're gonna be out to bid.
No.
If something comes
For the most
across in
part.
the report that we all say, this is worth investigating, and that's exactly what we'll do.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And I would hope as you're developing these plans, you're developing them with some expertise as to what these future options might be, whether it's
Lots of
lighting
expertise.
or heating. I would be very disappointed if there was a major issue that came up that you guys didn't identify. I'm not talking about simple stuff, but energy efficiency certainly is part of what this whole thing's all about.
And I think one thing we could do proactively, knowing that you're going to be doing this a little bit further down the road, is calling out separate costs for all of the lighting upgrades for this school. Because, for instance, at Stevens High School, that's one thing that was plucked out of kind of Ekman and our scope, because that made more sense and there was better payback, so it made more sense for the energy company to do it. And or the boilers. That could be those two things we did at Stevens. So when we're bidding things, we really need to ask what that cost is, so if we do decide to pull it out, you get the full credit back for it.
I think it's worth noting too that the school isn't looking, the district isn't looking at our needs in isolation. That this committee or subcommittee is, looking at the town's needs as well. So there may be economies there. Again, it's the very, very early. We haven't even had energy audits yet, and so it may or may not pan out. But there may be, win-wins there for the town.
And again, there are pieces that go beyond the scope of our identified project, because in our project, we're not touching any of the elementary school classrooms, essentially, or very minimally. So to be able to take those on in this different way, I think will be hugely advantageous moving forward. Again, if we can do it, in a way that's going to reduce the energy cost and be economical, which we have yet to review.
We're literally in the first step of that, and there's a lot of steps to go. So I would have to say, based on the designs that we've been working with and things like that, we've got a lot of really good energy efficiency that's been going into place. The equipment that's being listed is really higher efficiency equipment. I take, for instance, our boiler plants that are being spec'd for both schools. They're gas-fired condensing type boilers that are some of the highest efficiency that are available to us. So those, as a baseline spec, so those things have been kind of getting into place so that as we go forward, we're going to have those things. I think it's important to realize that we are so much in the infancy of this particular area that it's really hard to define what that's going to look like or how it's going to be or how, if in any, impact it would have. And I think I want to be really cautionary on that. So.
Yeah, I only brought it up not to have a detailed conversation, but more to just sort of let everybody know we may have another entry into the sweepstakes with thoughts and ideas, and whether I just want to make sure we're having closed the barn door after the horse is gone, that we know that there's some other stuff coming through.
One thing I did notice today in my walkthrough again, or was reminded of, is the beautiful wood floors that are in this 1925 section. And they have a lot of character, but they've been well cared for, and they're nice and dark, and the wood looks pretty good. So if we do want to keep that, which I'm recommending, or at least asking you if that's what you want to do, I think we should look at that. I think it would be cheaper in the long run, and it's a piece of history from the old school, but they are creaky.
I was going to say, some places are creaky and angled, and we
Can
need
you
to
fortify?
Not really. I mean, you could. It just is a lot of money to get it perfect, So, and that's part of the charm. So I think in the bad areas where there may be trip hazards, which I don't think there are many. There was one area that had a little hump. You could take that out and re-sand it.
Do we certify it as a historic area?
I was going to say that corridor floor is coming out right near the cafetorium.
This whole floor in here.
Right.
We're sistering. Basically, you double up, so they have existing 2x10 joists. You're going to take another one, put it right next to it in the same place. We're going to do that all the way through that area.
This may be a conversation for a different time, but sort of having lived there, it's been my second home for 6 or 7 years, and I agree. But I also agree with some of what Meredith's saying. Is there potentially, and we can talk about it later, a way to salvage some of it and use it in a place that it can be historical, but the performance isn't really an issue?
By the time you get it,
Then it's too costly.
Exactly.
You're going to try to take it up and move it?
Well, I only meant one small section somewhere, just.
But we may want to look maybe we can do you and Greg and I can do a room by room kind of audit of
something like that.
You have
places
to
that
look
make
at it too,
sense
because
to
I think
preserve.
it is there's not a subfloor. I think that's like a thicker old wood
Yes.
floor, and it's directly on the joist.
Yeah.
So taking
Right.
that off is not just, there's not a subfloor under there like you would do nowadays.
I'll put my 2 cents in. I think to the extent we can, we ought to save it. I mean, it's a good, it's just a comfortable floor to be on, too, and just, a couple
Yeah.
creaks are all right, but, if they're really bad in a certain area,
There are some ugly patches in certain places, things that, we should look at. I'm with you. I mean, I love preserving as many of the old features as we can, but we do want it to be an effective educational and safe space.
Along the same lines, there's that beautiful window at the end. Are those being, I know that I've been told that they're not all that energy efficient and that they kind of leak air like sieves, but they are really beautiful when the light comes in the mornings.
That was another thing I noted, and those ones, we aren't fully replacing, right? But
No, we're not replacing them.
we're looking at, I think for the large ones, we should look at an alternate to do a storm so that it improves its energy efficiency.
And you could do a nice storm. They actually say you're better off doing a storm is actually better than a replacement as far as energy efficiency.
That's what
Purposes go.
historic projects do anyway. They keep that historic window and then add a storm outside to it.
I remember right from the outset when we were interviewing architects, part of Banwell's presentation was trying to maintain the dignity of that kind of caught my eye, and I hope we can do that without compromising spaces.
And those windows.
It's a beautiful building.
Those windows aren't the oldest part of the building. Those have been replaced. Some of the performance issues were the insulation on the walls around the windows.
Right. Which is none. That's why.
Big issue.
Or old newspapers or something.
None.
There's some of that.
Zero.
And so one thing too we're looking at doing like in those classrooms we have these windows, like right now what they did is they basically brought the ceiling up about a foot to it and then they go up. Well, I've actually looked at it. You actually have quite a bit of ceiling space on there. So I'm looking at just halfway across the room, just slightly tapering the ceiling. So you get up and then you don't have that. You can actually see the window when you're actually in the room.
And in that last round of renovations, when they got up into those ceilings, that was phase 2, there are still some stringers that are not connected up there, so I think there were some issues with what's above, which is why they did it that way. So I remember that discussion.
Adam,
John smiling, Riley.
If I remember correctly, right, John?
Snakes.
There's some interesting stuff when we get up there.
Really nice rough cut lumber that doesn't seem to be doing anything, so again, Greg, you can probably sell that too.
What are you trying to say? I sell a lot of things?
It's come up.
I've got a price on you now.
But I remember that distinctly.
So, Adam, just back to the ceiling space you talked about in that, sloping it up halfway through the room. Why wouldn't you just take the ceiling all the way up? Is that
Because it's all like there's like spray fireproofing and stuff on there.
Gotcha.
And it's all
Okay.
pretty ugly.
It's about 3 feet from the drop ceiling to the actual next piece of whatever you call it.
But all that there stuff's pretty ugly. And then they have exposed ductwork and all that other stuff. So
I see.
But the cafetorium, we are trying to go back to the original.
Yeah, the point is the higher ceilings, the better, right?
Yeah. And we're limited. I mean, we're really working with mechanical. So we actually went through and we have a model of all this existing structure in the 1925, at least the best we could figure out in the 1925 building. And so now we're really looking at like how we're getting the ducts through there in the most efficient way possible, so we don't have to have like unnecessary soffits and really negotiate. Like, can we really squeeze that duct down a little bit more and try to look at that and plan it ahead? Because if we have to plan it during construction, it's going to cause delays, and so we're really trying to get ahead on that now. So.
So anything else down here? So one thing too that came up in their classrooms here that haven't been renovated that still have the asbestos that will be abated. There were some sinks, in the corners of the classrooms. For our proposed general classrooms, we are not putting in sinks. So we just wanted to make sure that was a question the engineer had. We're not, because we're taking them out, we're not sticking them in because the general classroom, okay, just wanted to double check and make sure that was true.
Other than science classrooms that
Right.
we identified.
Another thing in reviewing the more detail, some of the science classrooms that you have some fairly new casework. So rather than just scrapping that, it's gently used, if you will. We're recommending that you reuse some of that, so I think Chris and Greg and Meredith, we should kind of go through and see which ones, you know, can be reused and where they go. So. Control room. Do you guys know about this control room? We talked about that before. Is that it? This one.
Yeah.
So, just real quickly, so this is the second story, so above the band and music room, that's only one story?
Above the band and music,
Yeah,
yes.
that's just single
Yes,
story.
but it's a higher, it's not the same as the other one.
Oh, I guess one more change too. A good change. We went out and reviewed this stair. There's an existing stair right now coming out of the basement that goes out and shares an exit with the boys' locker room. Looking at that and how that lines out with our stage, we actually, before we actually had some plans between that and looking at more closely, we could just leave that where it is. It's actually under the stage, so now you actually get this space back. It's like a probably 10 by 10 square that you get back for your stage space. So.
So again, no major kind of red flags or no, oh my God, how are we going to do this? It's just we're, you know, getting into final stages of design.
The only changes we had, I think I don't know if we presented this or not, but we had for the OT PT sensory a small kitchenette area there because they do some life skills training, so they have the ability to do that. A regular sink and an ADA sink.
We are pricing up an alternate to dig a trench through this corridor to replace that pesky pipe that has a sag or a dip in it. So we will be having that priced up.
Other than that, we're looking at, I guess one thing more, we've been talking with vendors about the bleacher seating and stuff, so we have room. The request was for 100 spectators in there, and now we're able to actually fit all those in, 100 spectators on bench seating with the basketball court. So the alternate for that expanded gymnasium we probably don't need. Kind of taking that off a little bit.
It's good.
And other than that, we've reviewed equipment owners with Greg and Meredith on like what we actually need in the gym. Let's see, we're looking for door hardware, back to that. We're looking at the entryway. We're actually able to keep the storefront same. We had our hardware specialist kind of look at everything. The frame itself, the window and the glass is good. It's just the doors themselves we're going to replace and put new, because they have all the new electronic hardware. It's kind of hard to retrofit old doors to that. So.
It's all part of an alternate?
What's that?
That was all part of an alternate?
It was. Yeah. I guess the only thing on that would be just the quick elevation view on the back. We have some cowl wall just to get some more light, and we also have some skylights on there. These are an alternate. Just okay. So
Fiberglass.
It's translucent panels. They're insulated. You can't see through them as far as like picking out images, but you do get good diffused lighting through them, which is really nice in the gym space. They're also impact.
Cloudy things that you used to see here.
Yeah.
They were a lot
The
less
70s
product
school.
now.
Yeah, they don't yellow anymore. They've got new, better plastics and stuff.
And it is a New Hampshire based one.
Right in bow.
And it's nice for a gym because you can throw. It's not gonna break if you throw a ball at it. So.
So we've utilized bricks to tie in with your existing, but we've tried to break it up with some concrete masonry units, the cow wall, daylighting into the gym, and these accent bands.
Existing.
But we haven't gone over the top, make it too expensive. We have simplified the entries a little bit to help stay within our pre-bond budget. We kind of, after the bond with schematic design, our designers went a little nutso, so we brought them back down to earth, and we've done some minor changes to simplify them a bit, especially since this event entry is on the back side of your elementary school. It's not about that.
And kind of keeping in character kind of your existing openings. There's one at the kindergarten entrance and then your main entrance. They're both pretty simple entrances. So. What's that?
The other school.
Elevation. So this is kind of like an overall scale view. We have looked at the entrance that was one. Looking at the front bus drop-off, we have updated this. I think the one we had before was probably a little overkill for what you guys actually need at the end of the day. And when some of the things came in, it was one of the areas we thought we could find some savings. But we think it actually fits probably the character of the building a little bit more, the existing building. And yeah, so that's kind of what we came up with. It's just 2 brick pillars, or 3 brick pillars, or 4. And then the entrance is there. We're reusing the existing entrance opening that was there. Right now that's like the admin office, so we're going to open all that up, make it more of a prominent entrance again.
We didn't want to spend a lot of extra money outside the building on an entry icon. We really wanted to help create more money on the inside with a feeling of the entering the lobby and the procession to the cafetorium, and spend money on acoustic issues. So we're kind of balancing where we're spending it. So this is downplayed a bit, but it still is an entry, and it still has a covering, so when the kids or whoever's dropped off in the front, it's a weatherproof covered area there, but it's not a big, huge one that it used to be.
Are these like concrete benches or something that are along the front?
Yeah.
For seating and?
Brick with a stone, I'm not sure it's.
Cast stone
Yeah,
or-
cast stone.
They have no academic credentials in all, but that seems to take away from the traditional look of the building.
I think this view, I think you're right with this view. If you could see the whole model, it looks better, but.
We're trying to keep it, the nice about simple is you're not trying to compete with it too. Usually we do historic preservation work, they don't want you to try to do something that's imitating what's already there, because you don't try to convince people that what you're doing is old.
For the 13th, we'll bring some more diagrams so you can see the big picture. I don't, my first opinion of this, with this, was a little, ooh, that's a little stark.
Like a modern school building.
Exactly, but when you see the whole thing, it ties it in, because the addition is different vocabulary than the existing 1925, so we'll come back, we're not done.
Ingrid, there'll be 2 sets of doors in the entrance?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the SRO will be right there on the left.
What, so this is the bus entry, right? Okay. And I don't want to get down too far into the weeds, but snow and grime and grit, and it's all designed in here. We've got some grates or something, you know, that's.
Walk-off mat.
Yeah.
Walk-off grates, walk-off mats in the
Yeah.
vestibule.
You put any of that stuff outside these days, like you see at a ski area?
They have the grate, so we do like the recess with the
Yeah,
grate
just
on the
before you
exterior.
enter.
We do.
Well, that and having the space where you can scrub your shoes off without being in the weather and you take the coat off or something on the way.
There's different layers,
That
you know,
recess
so in the
space.
exterior you're getting off the big grit, and then when you get to like your mudroom, you're trying to the vestibule is going to have like a walk-off mat. It looks like carpet, but it's not. It's actually like a thicker
Yeah.
product, and that's really getting like drying your shoes off. So then when you get in, you know, you probably got about, all in all, about 10 feet of walk-off mat before you walk into the school. So.
Much of it will have melted on the bus on the
Yeah.
way.
But that will be our event entrance as well, for depending on the event. I mean, that's for public, if they're parking across the street for an event, are going to be likely using that door, so it will get, not everybody will be riding the bus.
So this is, I mean, you can see it here, but it's a flat view. I like showing the perspective because that's what a regular person kind of sees in 3D. So it's difficult to look. This is what architects kind of look at, flat. So we'll bring some perspectives next time.
Ingrid, the change in that roof from the peaked roof to a flat roof also gives more light to those windows
Yes.
directly behind it, which would have been obscured before.
Right.
You guys don't have any concern about flat roofs and 90 inches in February and March?
Not with modern roofs.
No.
Okay.
I mean,
How about a big gold eagle on top of that thing? Or a mule.
Bronzed mule, I think, that's what we
I
want.
like that.
I think a GoFundMe page would be a
Find a local artist and,
Commission it.
get some spirit going.
yeah.
Well, and don't forget, we're going to have some landscaping here too. So this is a very stark view of just the building.
So this is the front, like
Yes.
facing the, and then this is the west, the second one is the west view, which is the addition with the music room.
Right.
And,
Music.
right, and then the new addition, and then a new entry that's also covered.
Right.
And then this is the back with the gym, and
Gym.
then the, okay.
And then the team and weight room.
So, what happened to the, are we gonna have an events announcement sign, kind of like we have out there now?
We could, yes.
Yeah, we have a
You know,
So right now the sign just says.
you changed the
right
letter.
now we just have the,
Yeah.
we just put some letters in as a placeholder.
Yeah.
But
They are,
we can,
the sign, actually, Marathon, I just talked about it, it's in great shape. We've got a couple of former classes that have some funds that they want to put back into the community, so we can do a little of that. But what's there actually is pretty functional, so it's just may have to change location for the bus loop.
Yeah, keep in mind, the front gets dug up pretty good between drainage and the bus loop and
Yep.
what we're doing up front there.
Yeah, I was just wondering where it might go.
we do have, I mean, this is a pretty wide stair and there is some, area out front that could be used for like landscape. It's a good spot for waiting where you have kids waiting to get picked up.
I don't know, you know, I went to school, just happened on, for a swim meet last week, and they had an electric one. I mean, you can pay a lot or a little, I guess, for, just like anything else. But if we could keep our existing one, I suppose that'd be the way to go. But I just didn't know in this design where it might land, where it could land.
Put it on the carpenter probably with a big neon arrow that
So it's kind of light, but right here, you actually do have as an area up there where you have the sidewalk.
Yep.
So you do have an area there where you could have opportunities to do things.
But I was thinking
When
from
you're
the,
talking about signage, street
You want it from
view.
the street, so
Oh, on
if
the
you're
street
driving
too,
by.
okay. But it was about the event, or the
Well,
Yeah.
athletic areas.
so
No.
why don't we measure it
Like
up
that.
and, you know, on one of these sides, maybe we could
Could.
have an emblem with, you know, the eagle or
Eagle.
mule. Yeah, seriously, yeah. And the event sign right on here.
eagle carrying a mule.
We'd have to replace our existing one then
I put it on our list for
with electronic.
walkthrough.
It would be really nice to have one that could be updated.
I will tell you, the office
Digitally.
aides that go out to change the sign
In February?
will really appreciate any attempt to do it from the computer.
Be looking
Okay,
on
so
Vermont.
we're gonna need some sort of electrical.
I put it on our
Yep.
list.
Okay.
they'll probably have spell check too.
And town signage regulations, do we need to look into that?
Well, we have an existing sign. We certainly can talk to Mr. Hoffman about that, but
Size and
I
illuminated
think-
or not?
I thought
Yeah,
schools
I
were
think
kind
we're
of free
okay.
of radio.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking the schools are on their
But-
own.
Yeah,
and
I
We'll
know.
talk to
can't
him.
do much, but.
So we'll just need to know if you need electrical.
I have it on
Got
my
it.
Greg and Meredith list.
me too.
We want to
Starred.
get my copy to say that it's okay.
Yeah.
If I remember right, I think you just
Midnight
eliminated electronics.
Actually, maybe we don't. You got out of New York.
Well, because there's a Supreme Court ruling that if you allow banks to set the temperature up on a sign, then freedom of speech means you need to allow anybody to put anything they want up on a sign, on an electronic sign. So
That is
rather
true.
than on that road, we kind of went the other way. But this is a pre-existing sign, so I would think that it's grandfathered in.
Anything, any other questions, or?
Just that we're talking
You mean
about
before
some
the
of these little
Constitution?
things is so refreshing.
Good, well,
we
so our
have-
next meeting is on the 13th.
Yeah, we have a few other little updates that I wanted to go over, but yes, our next meeting is the 13th, and right now I have acoustic, some additional views, drawings and diagrams, and are we doing mechanical?
Yes, mechanical, electrical, plumbing.
Okay.
Still no new Waldos, so
Still no new?
no Waldos hidden in.
No.
So Greg, I know I have a list, and you may also have a list, but I'll start, and then you can fill out anything I missed. Does that work? Well, the McGrath building is being demolished starting this Friday by the town, so if you need a last photo of that building, this would be your opportunity to grab that. The salvage company finished up there a couple of weeks ago, and the town is starting this week. And notices have been put on the town and school website about that, but just, again, we want to make people aware.
Are they doing a controlled burn again?
They are not because of the proximity to neighbors.
You're actually starting with the outbuildings before the house.
I met last week with the folks at Lamprey Health, just touching base. They're our nearest neighbor to the junior senior high, so they're going to be affected by driveway access. As well, they have a historic oak tree on their property, so we just want to coordinate doing our best to protect that tree while we do our site work. So they were very cooperative with that. This summer, I think we've mentioned it before, but essentially the junior senior high will not be accessible. And so Greg and I met a couple months ago with Link Together, who has used our elementary building in the summer, to let them know that it won't be available. So we've been working with them, and the town has as well, on finding some alternate spaces. But logistically, we'll need to operate our summer programs exclusively out of the elementary school. Junior, senior high administrative staff will be working either out of this building or the elementary school. We have to coordinate cleaning schedules around a lot of things. So there are a lot of logistical pieces that we've begun working on behind the scenes. We also, and this is again very preliminary, but as we look at some of the structural pieces that we've identified with the geotechnical needs at the junior senior high, we think we probably won't be able to have access to the drop-off loop behind that building, probably through the next school year. So we're going to be having some meeting to really look at how we manage that piece for the upcoming school year. Again, no impact for this current year, but we'll be having conversations about that as we move forward.
None of these are long-term impacts anyway, they're just.
Correct. Yes, correct. And, we knew that we'd be facing lots of transitions, and there are a lot of moving parts. We had a preliminary phasing plan. We'll be adapting that as we move forward, but first we'll finish sort of the construction documents, but we're kind of looking at those things simultaneously. Let's see. Oh, the great news that I got yesterday is that we've been recommended for security infrastructure funding. So that will go to the governor in December, and then to Finance Committee in January. So if that gets funded at 80%, we're talking about $450,000 or so. So that would be a nice offset to some of our costs. That might let us pick up some of the alternates.
Is that just school, or is that include funding for town?
That's school only, school security infrastructure funding. So yeah, yes, it is huge, and we will know the for sure amount in January once Finance Committee comes back together, but it looks very promising, and we were on the list of projects approved yesterday, and it was a non-event, luckily, so that felt good. And that was my list. Yes, we did a lot of work to get those pieces submitted, but it paid off. Like all things.
We did it though. It was a good team effort, so I think Meredith did most everything. We continue to have our regular meetings with the design team. Just keep those pieces going forward, and hopefully looks like we'll be hitting our schedule times that we're looking for. So it looks good, and yes, there is no Waldos at this point. So. Be happy to hear that.
When you say scheduled times, do you mean
To get this, one of the biggest things that we want to make sure is we get this
bid, or this package out on the street for bidding. The longer we delay that, more people are going to get in front of us on bidding, and then what ends up happening is you start looking at price increases because contractors are setting up their work then for what they're going to do. So as they build their portfolio for work, their prices go up because their cost of operation goes up. So we want to be the first out of the gate with this project, and so.
So to come back to the timeline, we have a meeting scheduled for the 13th to review those items I just listed. And then we're also scheduled to meet the 29th. And I believe the intent for the 29th was to be sort of at final construction documents place so that those can.
Did you say we're meeting on the 29th?
That's what was on the
So we
calendar.
get the 13th and the 29th?
If that's what we want, yeah. 13th definite, so.
That's easy. Yeah.
Yeah, we did schedule the 29th prior.
Are you guys still on vacation then?
We are.
Okay.
Right.
So we
Could
could
do
push
this
it to the
Friday.
next week.
We could do it the next week,
Yeah.
the first week in January. if you like.
So the piece that was in my mind was that the school board meets that first week of January. We could consider having it be a joint meeting, but I thought it might be helpful for the school board to sort of see the final construction document piece
I think
before we
the
go
first-
out to bid.
sorry. The first week after the holiday would probably be better if that worked with your schedule, but.
I'm just thinking, this is a Friday night, it's before New Year's, it's probably not a
Exactly.
time to
Right.
say, oh gee, let's go to a 3-hour meeting.
Right.
Really? It really
Is
makes
it a
my whole
sorry,
holiday.
the 27th
I really,
was the
I don't
date.
understand because
I think-
I you know,
We live for this.
Today's the 29th. It was the 27th, but. So the school board meets January 4th. Would it make sense to this committee to, well, Ingrid's saying the first week in January would be better, so if that was a joint meeting, maybe did a joint meeting at 6 that evening with the building committee and the school board to look at final design documents, would that make sense?
it'd be nice to hit that timing because that would allow, barring anything, it would allow us to get this thing out on the street that next week. And that would put us in a good position, I believe.
So 12/29 is becoming 1/4.
Thursday, January 4th would be the suggested date. Beginning at 6. Be away. Oh,
So are you saying the 29th is out?
correct. Yeah, I think it was the 27th, actually, Greg, but.
I have the 29th on my calendar, but I'm not.
Now they're both out. The due date